Really weird with you all outside and me in here.
Alright.
There we go. Thank you, Alan. Dealing with my fantastic. Well, thanks for gathering around. We're going to do these talks once a month, and we're going to try and do some more mechanical talks as well, teaching some DIY motorcycle maintenance and also teaching some DIY mental health maintenance as well. So we're doing a series this year called DIY Mental Health 101, and we'll do it every third Thursday of the month in Upper Hutt, and then the week after or sometime following we'll do the same talk here on a Monday night. I don't know if we'll do it in Tawa. We'll see how we go if people want it, but either myself or somebody else will just bring just a tool. I reckon the language of tools is really good. Just a tool to help us just be, I suppose, healthier, more whole people. Like having a hammer, everything can become a nail. So as I say, these are just tools, and they're not applicable for every situation, and they're not the magic bullet that will solve all your problems, but they are just little things that might help us in life. So this week I'm going to talk about being reflective, and I'll get into that in a moment. I'll give a definition of being reflective. I will then talk about why being reflective is helpful, and then I'll give us some practical stuff that we can actually integrate into our own lives, do in our own lives, to help become more reflective. But I just want to say, with all this mental health stuff, it can open a bit of a can of worms for people. And here at the Motorcycle Collective, it's kind of an open secret that we want to create community to support one another and promote wellness. But we're not trained counsellors. I'm not a trained counsellor, so I highly recommend finding people to talk to, trained, trustworthy people to talk to, especially if you're really struggling. There's a great phone number. We support 13. Sorry, what was it? 13. No. Can't believe. Sorry. 1737. Thank you, Liam. 1737, and they can put you in touch. Another way to get in touch with getting decent counselling is through your GP. So if you go visit your GP, they can hook you up with seeing a counsellor as well. As for myself, as I say, I'm not a trained counsellor. However, I have some things that lend to having a little bit of knowledge in this area. So I am an Anglican minister. I lead a church in Petone, and I have trained for 9.5 years to be an Anglican vicar. That's, I think, as long, if not longer, than doctor. And as part of my training, I did courses in what we call pastoral care, but basically helping people, psychology, mental health stuff. And part of that is knowing the limits of where we need to stop as a pastor and pass over to someone who knows more. So I know a wee bit because I've done some courses and that stuff. And also I've gone on my own mental health journey. I am diagnosed with PTSD and have had counselling and learned quite a bit of stuff through that. And I'm somebody who probably shouldn't really have a particularly successful life. I was born with a learning disability. I'm dyslexic. I couldn't read till I was 12. I dropped out of high school when I was 15, had quite a lot of drug addictions and mental health problems, and but have overcome quite a lot of that. Still struggle in some areas and probably will always do, but I've learned a few things that have really, really helped me. So a lot of the stuff that we'll talk about in this series is stuff that I've learned firsthand and experienced firsthand and know firsthand that's helped me. I just have to mention I am a minister, so Jesus had a pretty big part in my healing, but I'm not going to talk about Jesus tonight, so everybody can just not worry. It's all right, safe. Till I get into being reflective.
Go on.
Being reflective, yeah. So my definition of being reflective is noticing what you notice. Noticing what you notice. Why is that particular thought on top? Why do I keep on thinking about that? Why did I notice that person doing that thing? Why is my body feeling all tense and on edge right now? Notice what you notice. It's really important for us to think about and notice, what are we thinking about? What are the stories that are going through our heads? How are we feeling? Are we tired? Are we feeling lonely? Are we angry? Are we hungry? And then notice, what's going on with your body. Are you feeling tight across the shoulders? Are you feeling relaxed? And when I was doing a little bit of research for this talk, I came across this statistic which said that 90% of people, only 10% of people kind of get to know themselves. They are self-aware. And when you notice what you notice, you're learning to be self-aware. But 90% of people just go through life not actually being aware of themselves. They might know what they want. They might know when they're hungry they'll go eat something, or they saw that thing on the interwebs and they really want to buy it. But that's different from knowing yourself. And when you notice what you notice, you start to get to know yourself and start to understand how you operate, the stories that are going around in your head, how you might, your working style, or how you might interact with somebody. So that all begins with being reflective and noticing what you notice. So I mean, why would we be reflective? I think it's a pretty good idea to get to know yourself. Wouldn't you agree? Get to know yourself. Yeah. Another thing is being reflective lifts your resilience. It's quite a big buzzword at the moment, but resilience just means when crap happens, you're better prepared to deal with it. So life is full of hard work and pain and uncertainty, and being reflective won't take that away. Sorry, there's no magic bullet for that. But when the pain and the uncertainty and the hard work of life come, being reflective and getting to know yourself, noticing what you notice, will actually help you see you through those tough times. So that's why you might want to be reflective, get to know yourself, and get to be resilient. Now, why does being reflective, noticing what you notice, work? Why does it help? Why does it help? And it's all because of the pathways in our brain. So I'm going to draw a brain. This is the only time I'm going to use our whiteboard. Do you like my brain? I think that's pretty good.
It looks like the internet.
It looks like the internet. In our brains are made up of little tiny pathways. So we have these little pathways, and these pathways in our brains that's our our software. That's our operating software. That's how it works. So whenever we do something, we have a little pathway in our brain. Whenever we think something, we have a little pathway in our brain. And the more we do something, or the more we think something, the more these pathways become well-worn paths. They kind of get thicker and thicker and thicker. So I notice this when I turn left out of my driveway. So usually when I leave my driveway and I turn left, more often than not, it's because I'm going to go to the supermarket. More often than not, I'm going to the supermarket. But every now and again, I might be turning left out of the driveway, but not going to the supermarket. Might be going to go see somebody else. But for whatever reason, I still end up at the supermarket. Have you ever done that? You just start driving to the supermarket? It's because my brain is incredibly efficient, and it's like, turn left, going to go to the supermarket. And this does our bodies do this because it's efficient. And most of the pathways that we have in our brain are developed before we're 3 years old. So, and it's just because we don't want to have to constantly be thinking about walking or talking or whatever it is. Just we create these pathways. However, sometimes these pathways can take us down places that aren't good for us. So, for example, if every time you make a mistake, you go, I'm such an idiot, there's like a little pathway being thickened up. And then, you forget something when you're going out somewhere and you go, I'm such an idiot. And then the pathway gets thickened up again. And you're actually ending up training your brain, telling yourself something that's, I think we can all agree, it's not a very good idea to call yourself a fucking idiot all the time, right? But we can do this with lots and lots of stuff and not even realize that we're doing it. We're creating pathways in our brain, creating stories for ourselves and for other people and for the world that aren't actually particularly helpful for us. And because our brain and our body are really efficient, we just don't even notice. We don't think about this. So being reflective is really, really important, noticing what you notice, because you can't start to get to know yourself, and you start to realize, oh, maybe I've got a pathway that isn't healthy. Maybe I've got a pathway in my brain that's not taking me in a good direction. So when you notice that, that's the beginning of being able to change things. And I have to say, being reflective it's actually just helpful to notice first off before we do anything else. So that's just what I'm talking about today. So that's why it works. You can start to notice your pathways, and then maybe you could start creating a new pathway. You know, rather than, oh, I'm an idiot. Oh, everybody makes mistakes. It's all right. Then we start to make a new pathway. So, how do we do it? How do we be reflective? How do we be reflective? Now, I have to say, with all these mental health tools that I'm going to talk about this year, there is a little bit of a cost, but it's an investment. Think of it as an investment. You know, with investment, it costs something to begin with, but it pays dividends in the future. So if you're going to have a more reflective life, I'm really sorry, it's going to cost you something. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. But what it's going to cost you is having a rhythm in your life where you have time for solitude. So how do you be reflective? You find time for solitude. What is solitude? Solitude is spending time by yourself without any distractions. Time by yourself without any distractions. And I think this is where, as riders, we have a little bit of an edge on everybody else, because we can jump on our bike and get rid of all the distractions and forget everything and have a moment to be reflective, to start noticing what we notice what's on top. What are we thinking about? Notice how we feel. Notice the stories that we're telling ourselves. Being on the bike, you might want to just go for a walk. You might just want to sit yourself in a room on a comfy chair, and make sure your phone and your laptop is in the other room. You might actually want to have a pen and paper nearby and jot something down. Now, I have to say, solitude is different from being alone, because I know a lot of people, especially if you don't have family or you live by yourself, actually spend a lot of time alone. And so that's a little bit different from solitude. And if you find yourself feeling lonely a lot of the time, maybe solitude's not quite what you need. Maybe it's actually connecting with people. Although you can take times of being intentional about sitting and noticing what you notice. You might notice, oh, I'm feeling really, really alone. Maybe I need to go and hang out with my mates. So just difference between solitude and loneliness. There's a difference there. You guys got that? Sweet. I forgot to mention that in my last talk, so I was really hoping that I remember that. Now, a couple of things about solitude. First of all, I have to say solitude is dangerous. I don't know if you probably know this from the movies, but you know, solitary confinement is used as a punishment in prisons. When they want to hurt somebody or punish somebody, they chuck them in solitary confinement. There's actually something about being alone, having solitude, that can be incredibly difficult. Being left alone with your thoughts, with your own thoughts, can actually be quite hard. And I think in our day and age, in our culture, we spend so much time distracting ourselves. You know, I wake up first thing in the morning and I put some music on and I start cooking breakfast, and then I take my kids to school or whatever, and then I come home, the laptop's open again, I'm checking my email, I'm checking my Facebook, and I'm distracted all day with one thing or the other, whether it's technology or whether it's the people around me. You can be distracted all day. And then having a moment where there's no more noise and it's just you and your own thoughts can be incredibly difficult. I know this from personal experience because I was a motorcycle postie for a few years, and I have to say the first 3 months, being on a bike, sometimes 8, 10, 12 hours a day on my own, just delivering mail, it was tough. Being inside my own head for that long was really, really tough. But I learned to love it. And here's the key. Here's the key. You have to learn in the solitude to be your own best friend. Solitude only works as a punishment if you're really good at beating yourself up. So you have to learn to be your own best friend in the solitude. You know when you like, you know when you're hanging out with your mate and then they start telling you something and they're like, kind of really beating themselves up. Oh, I did this thing I can't believe, and oh, I got that wrong, and da da da. And as a friend, you're sitting there and you're like, it's not a big deal. Like that's just normal human being. Be that to ourselves. Be that to ourselves. Be our own best friends, our own cheerleaders. That will help a lot in the solitude. And the other thing that we can do, this is the last thing, is do ask yourself questions. Ask yourself questions. So notice what you notice, and then rather than beat yourself up, oh, why am I feeling so tired? Oh, because I didn't go to sleep last night, you know. Ask yourself, why am I not sleeping? Why would that be? What happened to mean that I fell out with that person yesterday? You know, ask yourself some questions. That's kind of extra for experts, because I have to say, I think just noticing what you notice and then being a friend to yourself is enough in the solitude. So in summary, notice what you notice. That's my definition of being reflective. It's about learning to get to know yourself. It all works because of pathways in our brain, and it's the beginning of creating new pathways in our brain. We can actually be intentional by finding solitude and be your own best friend. And I'm going to end with a bit of a challenge. Who here likes whiskey? Does anybody like whiskey here? Who's heard of the angel share with whiskey? Does anybody know what the angels share? Yeah. It's when they put the whiskey in the cask, they find over time that 2%, sometimes more, but usually 2% of the volume of the whiskey disappears. They reckon the angels nick it, which I quite like the idea of that. I looked it up. 2%, the angel share of your life, 2%. That's half an hour a day. That's 3.5 hours a week. And that's 7 days a year. So here's my challenge. Try to find maybe half an hour. Maybe start baby steps. Maybe start with 5 minutes. But if you had a routine of half an hour a day where you're spending time reflecting in solitude, and maybe like 3.5 hours each week, jump on your motorbike, go over the Tackers and back or something. I don't know. And then 7 days a year, block out a time to do an overnight trip somewhere, go stay in a motel, stay in a campsite, spend 24 hours reflecting on your life. I reckon that could make a big difference to our mental health and well-being. So I'll finish there. And any comments or questions or snide remarks? They're all welcome here.
I think I used up all my snide remarks earlier.
No.
I find it kind of funny and really gratifying that your solution is ride more motorcycles.
Isn't that the answer to everything?
Yeah. And that's my routine. At half an hour every day, usually after I put take the kids to school, I'll take half an hour reflecting in silence, and then on my days off, I try to jump on the bike and go somewhere. I haven't quite managed the overnight 7 days in the year, partly because it's a big ask for my wife to look after our 4 children without me. The evenings are particularly hard, but you know, I can do a bit of negotiating, maybe get a couple of days a year. So no questions? No worries. Well, that's me. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jethro.